Welcome to my class today. So we want to look at literals in Python. And then after these literals, we'll look at operators in Python. So in my last video, I did a little talk about this concept of literal. So what is literal? That is what we are basically going to look at now, and then see how it is applicable to the Python programming language. Okay, so let's go into our Python literal. Now, Python literals. A literal is simply a notation representing a fixed value in the source code. While it's common to assign literals to variables for later use, you can also use literals directly in your code without assigning them to variables. Print, this is an example, print 10 plus 5, using the literals 10 and 5 directly in addition operation. Print hello world, using the string literal hello world directly. In Python, literals are used to represent fixed values in the source code. Here are different types of literals with examples. So we have the numeric literals, which are integer literals, 42 minus 1, 2, 3. Then the binary literal, this octal, and then this is hexadecimal. Now, float literals, 3.14 minus example of them. String literals. We've seen some of these examples in my previous classes. Single quote, quoted string, hello world. Double quoted string, Python is fun. Triple quoted string, multi-line string example. You can see this one is triple quote, this is double quote, and this is single quote. Now, Boolean literals, we have true, we have false. Non-literals, we have none. Byte literal, we have byte literals, which is binary data. Byte array literals, we have set literals. We've seen this when we're doing the set data type. List literals, we've seen this in the list data type. Tuple literals. Now, dictionary literals. These literals represent different types of data in Python, and they are used to assign values to variables or to form the building blocks of expressions and statements in your code. Okay, we've used all these literals in our previous lectures. So why are we having it as a topic today? It's just for me to still explain the concept of what we are trying to achieve in learning Python or learning any other programming language. So what is the concept again? I told you from the very beginning that programming language is about, programming is all about data and code. Now we have data in one hand, then we have code in the other hand. But the major thing that I want you to understand is this. In learning this Python, I am teaching you the generic language, right? But when we now start going into solving problems, we will now have to write a series of code to solve a particular problem. Now, that code that you write that specifically solves a problem is known as the source code. Now, what this literal mean is this. In one of my videos, I've explained information, data, and I also have explained variable. Now, the data is actually represented by using literals, right? So you can say A equals to 10, right? The A is a variable. The 10 is what? Is a literal. That is what it means. So in the definition that I have given here, in the definition, I am saying a literal is simply a notation representing a fixed value in the source code. You understand? So there is code, which is the generic that we are going to learn. But there is the source code, which is a specific code that we have written for a specific problem, a solution to a problem. That is a source code. So the literal that you are going to use in that source code will remain constant throughout the source code. But you can actually alter variables. That's why it is called variables. So you can actually say A equals to 10, and then further in your code, you can say A equals to 5. But the 10 and the 5 are literals. That is just simply the explanation I want to give to you for why we are having literal as a topic. I'm going to use my PyCharm, which is the IDE that we are using, just to introduce explain this literal further to you. Okay, so these are PyCharm. So we are just going to rush through everything that we saw there, all those literals. So when I say A equals to 10, now this 10 is a literal. So this is an integer literal, right? That is assigned to a variable. Now I can come here and say print. I can say print A and it will print 10 for me. But I can equally say, I can now say A equals to 5. And then I will say print A. Now it's going to print a different value. Here I can say print the example that I showed you. I can say print 5 plus 10. Now, this is me using a literal in my code directly. While in this place, I am actually assigning this literal to a variable, and I'm asking the print function to print the variable. And in my code again, I'm changing the literal. I'm changing the value of the variable by supplying a different literal to it. And I've also actually explained the concept of variable in Python, which is a bit different from other programming languages. That in Python, a variable is actually a pointer. So what we are dealing with today now is literal. So literals are constant values that you introduce into your source code. It doesn't change. So I'm not changing this 10. I'm not changing this 5. Right? These 10 and these 5 are literals that I'm introducing into my source code. So I can use them directly inside the source code. Now, if I'm going to print this, you see, the first one was what? It printed out A, which is what it printed out 10. Then when I change the value of A by supplying a different literal, and I decide to print A, it printed out 5. But in this place now, I'm using my literal directly, supplying it directly to my print function through the help of what? An operator. So the next lecture we are going to do will be on operator. So you will see what these operators are for. Just helping you to expand your code. That is what the operators are for. So that is basically what literal is about. Literal is a notation that you supply into your source code. It doesn't change. So it is static, right? But variable is actually dynamic. You can change a variable like you've seen here now. I've changed the value of this variable by pointing it initially at 10, and then still in my script, I now point that variable to another literal value. But the 10 and the 5 are remaining constant. And then in the last print function, I'm supplying this literal to what? To my print function directly without passing it into a variable before using it. Are you with me? So that is exactly what I want to show you. And that is why I'm just introducing this literal as a topic that is standalone. So all those data types are all literals. You can use them directly in your source code without passing them to a variable. That is the difference between literals and variable. So the next class that I'm going to teach you now will be on operators. So you're going to see all these operators, different types of operators that we have in Python. So till then, see you in the next class.